when the mother is having her water break, basically when the process of birth begins. Because then both the mother and the infant are closer to death than to life. So this is a passage that's a very fraught passage. We don't know that it's going to be successful. And the Ruach Elohim Merachefet, it's like God's spirit is hovering. It's almost like the angel of death is hovering. So here we go, Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. Beresheet bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. V'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu v'choshech al pnei tehom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. And the earth was chaos and void, with darkness over the abyss, and the wind or the Spirit of God was hovering over the water. Vayomer Elohim yehi or, vayehi or. God said, let there be light, and there was light. Vayi Elohim, vayar Elohim et ha'or ki tov vayavdel Elohim ben ha'or ven ha'choshech. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. Vayikra Elohim la'or yom, ולחושך קרא לילה, ויהי ערב, ויהי בוקר, יום אחד. And God called the light day, and called the darkness night. There was evening and there was morning, a first day. And obviously, to Chazal, and for our purposes, for the Ishbitzer, this, what we just read, is not obvious. And I isolated 4 questions that he's going to actually ask and answer. One is, why does God create light? First thing. Second question is, why does the word light appear 5 times in the first paragraph of Beresheet? Is the number 5 significant? The third question is, why is there first chaos and void? And why is God's Spirit hovering over a dark abyss? Is that significant? And the fourth question the Ishbitzer asks is, why does God call the light day?
You know, there's a saying of our sages, Kol Eskalas Kashas, all beginnings are challenging. And that certainly holds true for the first parsha of the Torah. Parshas Beresheet is set apart in so many ways from every other parsha. You know, we have the story of the forefathers, and we have the story of our time in Egypt, and we have the story of our time in the desert, and scattered throughout that we have the fine points of ritual, which is described in great detail. Skin disease could take up pages and pages describing what is a skin disease, what's not a skin disease, like you're reading an anatomy book in a medical school. So it's very brass tacks, it's very down to earth. The whole Chumash is either telling us a narrative, a historical narrative, or teaching us what to do and what not to do in great detail. There's one exception. This Parsha Beresheet, all of a sudden, we're in the Lord of the Rings territory. We're like fantasy, science fiction, what in the world is happening here? But in a way, it does make sense, because this is the parsha where we're talking about the mystery of creation. And if you're talking about the mystery of creation, you're not. I'm not going to just give you the formula, the magical formula. It's got to be couched in mystery.
Right.
And we have to really struggle and stretch our imaginations to really understand a little bit about what's happening here. Because ultimately, this is the great mystery which no one can ultimately understand. This is God making something out of nothing.
I'm going to give us a very quick tour on how to find the source sheet, and then you can, if you'd like, look at the Hebrew and the English of the commentary as you're listening to the shiur, and you go to the Hebrew Learning Circle's website. You click on, as I just did, you click on Jewish resources, and you go down to Parsha videos. Click on that, and that's where it is. Torah Sheet Beresheet video, and here it is, and everything is there, Hebrew, English. And while we have you, if you haven't yet, the new year, New Year resolution, why don't you sign up, subscribe to our channel, and share if you like, and like the video on YouTube. We would appreciate that very much. The Mishnah says the following. He quotes, "Vayomer Elokim yehi or vayhi or," and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Then he brings a midrash. Rabbi Hoshea, Rabba Patach. So Rabbi Hoshea, Rabba opened with the following teaching about a verse in Proverbs, Mishlei Chet Lamed, Ve'eyeh etzlo emon ve'eyeh shashuim yom yom. So the verse says, and I will be as if God's student, as if God is raising me, and I will give God delight day in and day out, or every day, literally, it says. And then he goes on to tell us that the word emon, which means to be, I think, raised or cared for as a child by a parent, has 5 different meanings.
I think these are 5 different actual translations of the word. So an uman could be an artisan. Mm-hmm. An uman could mean a mentor, a pedagog,
pedagogy,
a mentor. And amon could mean hidden. In other words, equals hidden. In other words, a taich of the word. So there are 5 different ways, at least 5 different ways, of defining this word. Simple translation. Right. One of them is to raise up. That comes from the story of Esther, the Purim story, where it says that this man, Mordechai, raised his cousin Esther because she was an orphan. Rashi has to tell us what that over there it means that he acted as a foster father, I think would be the word.
So he was the protector. That's the covered. I think that's where that's where the connotation is to be covered by. He covered her back, you could say. We continue. העניין בזה כי כמו שימצא באדם מהתחלת הביאתו עד ביאתו לתכלית שלמותו 5 מיני עבודות ומדרגות. And this is parallel. What this means is that when a person from the point of a person inception till the time that a person comes into his or her fullness, there are 5 stages. And these 5 interpretations of Emon are parallel those 5 stages of human development, and he's going to here elaborate. Barishona, בשעת זריעת האב והאם, אז הוא בהיעלם גמור שאינו ניכר לשום בריאה. The first stage is when the conception, when the seed and the egg of the father and the mother come together. There's a potential for a person, but there really is no person yet. There's nothing to see yet. Havaya shniya, the second stage, היינו אחר שנוצר במעי אמו בשעת העיבור, אז החל להיות בו קצת הכרה ותפיסה. When the fetus starts growing in the mother's womb, then you can start seeing something. Second stage. Havaya shlishit, third stage, וכשנולד אז נשלם הווייתו ויוכר לעין כשהוא בריאה. Once the fetus leaves the womb, when there's the birth, then we see that, oh, okay, here is the person. And the fourth stage, בהוויה רביעית, הוא כשנעתק משדי אמו ויתחיל לעשות פעולות. the child, is weaned from his mother's from breastfeeding, and in other words, becomes more independent, starts doing things independently. Then you see a person who's now beginning to be independent, no longer an extension of the mother. והוויה חמישית, and the fifth stage, שנושא אישה הוא מתחיל לעשות הוויה חדשה, להבנות בניין וקיום עדי עד אשר לתכלית זה נברא. When a person, he says, when a man takes a woman as a wife, but I want to say this goes for a woman too. So when a person takes a spouse and begins the creation of a new human being, which is the purpose for which a person is created.
Right, and that was self-explanatory, but I just want to point out something that I noticed here. He doesn't say that there are 5 stages of development in a human being. The conception, the pregnancy, the birth. He uses the word havaya. He seems to be implying that these 5 are all part of the creative process. And he uses the word shlemus. He's saying that with these 3 or 4 of these steps are not complete creating. You don't become a complete person. Mm-hmm. So, which is an amazing thing. Right. Even the stage of becoming independent and the stage of the continuation of the next generation,
right,
is part of my being created.
Right. So it's an ongoing creation. So you could say that each stage is a state of being unto its own.
Right.
But you're not yet until the 5th state of being. You haven't come fully into the purpose for what you have been created.
Right. Amazing his use of the word v'havaya, Shiniya havaya shlishit.
וכן הוא 5 הוויות האלו בבריאת העולם. And so we have these 4 states of being in the process of the creation of the world. He says also in creation you have these 5 states. שיצא מן העין והעלם הגמור אל הגילוי ויש. So in the beginning, the world, creation, and by the way, not the physical world, but this is before we have a material world, there's a coming out from nothingness, like you said before, Rebbe Eli, God creates from nothing to something. So when the creation comes from nothingness and complete hiding or concealment, ela gilui ve'yesh, to the potential or the state of the beginning of forming something that can be revealed. But tchila ita nikret amon mutzna. So this is the interpretation of the word amon from Mishlei that is concealed. Because all this was part and parcel, was folded into the essence, his essence, meaning God's essence. And there was no distinction or recognition of any kind of bestowing, any kind of movement into creation. Mimeno itbarach, of atziluto, meaning God's bestowing, bringing something into being. V'zot hayta havaya rishona, and this was the first stage. So the first stage of something is really kind of a potential inside nothing that we can't even identify. וכשנאצלה ממנו יתברך, and when creation has been bestowed from the Creator, the blessed Creator, והתחילה לצאת יותר אל ההתגלות and started to come more into revelation. אז הייתה הבעיה השנייה הנקראת אמון מכוסה. Then there was the second state of being in creation that is parallel to the interpretation of the covered emon, the meaning of emon as something that is covered. I think that you referred, you explained how Esther, how Mordecai was the protector or the cover of Esther. And this parallels the state of the fetus that is covered or hidden away by obviously by inside the mother's womb. ואחר כך יצא יותר להתגלות ונקרא המון פדגוג. And then it comes out into greater revelation, and this is parallels the interpretation of Emon as a tutor, as a pedagogue. ואלו הגימל הוויות הם השלושת ספירות הראשונים, and these first states of being are the first sefirot in the order of the 10 sefirot, הנעלמים, which are hidden, והם כתר חוכמה ובינה, which are the crown, wisdom, and understanding.
But in general, what he's referring to in this interpretation and in the parallel is that there's this idea of a process, a creative process, from the most spiritual to the least spiritually revealed, to the most coarse and physical. This is called Seder Shtalshalus, the chaining down of the creative process. And basically what he's saying is it mirrors or parallels, in a sense, the creation of each individual human being. We see that played out. So he's talking about the world. We call them worlds. The world of Atzilus is the most spiritual world. It's very close to the Godhead itself, the pure divinity itself.
Right.
So that's what he's talking about, and he's relating it to the 5 steps of an individual human's development.
That's right.
And here he's mentioning certain of the spheroids, which is basically going from, again, the most spiritual, right, chaining down towards the more physical into the Malchus, which is right, our realm.
Right. And I think it's worth to add one more thing to what you're saying, is that Keter, Chochmah, and Bina are the first 3 sefirot, or the first 3 stages in that 10-point gradual process from the most spiritual to the most material, and they're considered hidden sefirot. He's going to explain that later, actually, because they're parallel the mental functioning, which is actually hidden to others. Midrash mefaresh mitata leila batchila, and he's qualifying his metaphor and saying, but in the midrash, it goes from the lower to the higher in the other direction. So the midrash mefaresh, the midrash is actually interpreting this from below to above, reverse order. B'tchila emon pedagog. First it says the tutor, neged bina, which parallels a sephir of bina, lowest one. Achar kach emon mechuseh, the emon as a cover that parallels chokhmah, the middle one. Achar kach emon mutzna, then emon as something that's completely hidden. Shehu neged Keter, which parallels the highest sephira, which is Keter, which is exactly near the Godhead, as he said. Ulerov ha'alamata nikret mutzna, and she's called mutzna because she is the most hidden, in the sense that we don't even know about it. It's kind of like the things that we don't know that we don't know. If you get into that. ואחר כך התגלה יותר אל הגילוי הנקרא המון רבתה, and then it becomes, after these 3 states, it reveals itself even further into the what's called the Emon Rabata. This is where it's considered the name of the great city of Alexandria, meaning that is expanding in size. Ainu shitchila lidgadel. I'm getting ahead of myself. Meaning that the creation starts to grow and expand. V'hu sod ne'etak mishteimo. And this is the meaning of the child weaning from his mother's breast, breastfeeding, meaning the child becomes to grow now independently. Then it's the interpretation of artisan, meaning that here the creation goes into full revelation and begins independently to create new beings, al pi ratzon Hashem yitbarach, according to the will of the Holy One, blessed be. V'lachen, b'chatuna mevarchim b'chat asher yatzar. During the wedding, we say the bracha in the Sheva Brachot, asher yatzar et adam b'salmo, who we were blessing and acknowledging God for being the creator, the former of a human being in the image of God. Right? But we don't say that bracha when a person is just born. It's interesting that because when a person is born, the person is not yet complete. Right. But when a person marries, then finally. So the joke I want to say before, without getting into the long story, when a Jew is asked, when a rabbi is asked, when is a human being finally mature, and the rabbi said, when they sign up for medical school. It's a little bit of a longer joke, but that's the punchline, right? Yeah. So, but here, it's a little bit like that joke, because when is a person finally a person? When they marry and they bring into the world, when they're in a position of bringing into the world new people just like themselves. וזאת הברכה בשעת הולדה, כי אף שהאדם נולד לא נשלם בשלמות, רק שיתחיל להשתדל לעשות הוויה חדשה, והוא כשנושא אישה. So it's only when a person is married and has a spouse and starts a family, that is when there's the wholeness, it's a completeness of the process of becoming a human being, a full human being. And this is the meaning of the original verse in the beginning of Beresheet, in the Chumash, that the earth was chaos and void. Hainu, mizman bria ad zman sheyukar ha'ubar yikare tohu. So from the time of conception until the time of the forming of the fetus, that is called chaos. That's parallels the word chaos in the land was chaos and void. Uzman sheyukar, from the time that one can identify the fetus, ikara vohu, then that stage is called vohu. Ainu shehukar. I'm sorry, vohu means void. So when we say chaos and void, tohu is chaos, vohu is void. Ainu shehukar sheyesh eze davar acheno yodea mahu. Meaning that we can recognize that there's something there, but we don't know what it is yet. Right? So the fetus is not recognizable as a human being yet. Maybe, starting, but not, we can't yet tell. And the 9 months of pregnancy are called, and there was darkness over the abyss in the verse. So the darkness over the abyss are the a metaphor or a parallel in this scheme, pregnancy or the evolution of the fetus inside the womb. לפי שאז יש ציפוי וקיווי לידה סוף מזה. At this point, there is an expectation and a hope and an anticipation of the end of the process, meaning there's a child coming to us. But definitely there's a movement from, again, like we talked before with Keter, Chochmah, and Bina, from the most hidden to more revealed and more revealed. And then the next part of the verse, Beruach Elokim merachefet al pnei tehom, that means so God's Spirit is hovering over, it says, over the abyss. Hainu, meaning, b'shat yeshiva ala mashber, when the mother is having her water break, basically when the process of birth begins, because then both the mother and the infant are closer to death than to life. So this is a passage that's a very fraught passage. We don't know that it's going to be successful. And the Ruach Elohim merachefet, it's like God's Spirit is hovering. It's almost like the angel of death is hovering. Kedeita b'Gemara, as it brought in the Gemara. Vayomer Elokim yehi or. So the Midrash says, again, quotes our verse, and God said, "Let there be light." Hainu shenigmor ha'yeshua b'shlemut, meaning that the let this process be saved from danger. Right? Yeshua is redemption. Be redeemed from its perils and come into wholeness. V'ne'emar chamisha pamim yehi or. Let there be light, or the word light appears 5 times, paralleling or representing these 5 states of being that we just went through, that are the 5 interpretations of the word Amon, that are the 5 stages of the birth of a child, and the 5 stages of the creation of the entire universe, entire cosmos.
Right.
V'acharon vayikra Elokim la'or yom, and the very last mention of light is when the verse says, and God called the light day. Hainu, what does that mean? Shenishlam kol ha'mechaven le'asher bara Hashem yitbarach et ha'olam. Shenishlam kol ha'mechuvan. That means that everything that God has aimed for in the creation is now complete, and that we call day.
The ultimate completion of creation is the metaphor of light. Everything becomes clear, everything comes to fruition and completion. So the completion of the process of being a human being is when we find our soul mate and we reproduce. And that's bringing light into the world and continuing the process. We become partners. It says that a husband and a wife is when they have a child, is actually in partnership with God.
What's occurring to me, he doesn't say this, I don't think he says this explicitly, but when he says "Shenigmor Yeshua b'shlemut," that salvation will come with that wholeness, before I go there, the whole idea that there's this evolutionary process and or these stages, that it's gradual, and these stages are not just theoretical speculation. We see that in the making of a child. I mean, the parallel there is very powerful, I think. But when he says that there's something redemptive about coming into that wholeness, And the wholeness is when I can also now create a new child. I mean, there's this eternal cycling from generation to generation, right? But I think what you're alluding to is Yemot HaMashiach, that there's going to be some kind of coming to fullness of the entire cosmos at the end. And that's what that's in our tradition, we call it Mashiach. I think that's why he's saying Yeshua. That will be at some point, we will be redeemed from from the perils, from the danger, from that struggle to emerge from one stage to the next stage. And there will be like a day that Olam Shekulot Tov, like a day of, I think he's hinting here to that idea that there's some completion of the whole process in a grand kind of way.
That's interesting. When you were saying that just now, it made me think in other cultures, they speak about the cycle of rebirth, that the person is sort of trapped in this cycle, and the one of the goals is to try and free oneself
from the cycle,
from the cycle of death and rebirth through our behavior, actually.
Yeah.
But it seems to be a similar idea that there's an end game.
Yeah. So I want to bring it down, for myself and for others, to bring it down into the day to day. Imagine if we wake up every morning and this day is a day filled with light, and this could be the completion, the day that completes the whole process of creation. No more perils, no more suffering, no more. What an attitude! What a way to start the day, right? So may we still be blessed.
Yeah.
Folks, please like, share, and subscribe. My job to say that. If I haven't, here I am. We appreciate you learning with us. And our commitment, Rebellion and myself, is to be here every Wednesday morning. You may join us on through the meetup.com and sit with us live and join us at the end of the presentation for a discussion. Happy New Year, happy new cycle of Torah reading. It's exciting to be at Beresheet, and with that, shalom for now.